All right, so in tonight's live stream, I want to do a little bit of kind of finishing up what we were working on yesterday in the last live stream, and also show you something that I think is a game changer, and that is this Chrome extension file packer. For anybody that's interested in building a Chrome extension, this is a great tool to use. So let me just double check that this is the stream is live, because it looks like I've got hit pause over here. So okay, I think we're good. All right, so last time that last live stream, we were working on a web tool, which is it's becoming a much larger, much more featured tool than I anticipated. That is not necessarily a bad thing, but that can happen when you're working on this process, where you start out with a simple idea, and pretty soon you've got a million features that you didn't want. And part of the process of building out a tool like this is trying to narrow down exactly what it is that you want to do. And often that process will kind of go in these stages where, well, you'll get way more complex than you need to be, and then you'll narrow it back down, and then way more complex. Sometimes you have to start over completely because you just get way off track. But each time you do that, each time you iterate, you're probably and hopefully going to be learning something about what it is that you're trying to do. And you'll also run across this problem that I mentioned in the previous live stream, which is the problem of order of operations. When you're building out a web tool or any kind of software, order of operations is super important, because what can happen is you go super far down the road building it on a certain platform or with a certain assumption about how it should work. And you end up building out this feature set that is predicated on a premise that is not true. And so you end up with this overcomplicated or just completely broken system or tool that doesn't do at all what it is that you set out to do. And often that's just because you didn't quite understand the problem to begin with. It's always nice if you can break down the problem first and really understand what it is that you're trying to do from the very beginning. But it usually is a case where you just don't know. You think you know, and you don't know. So you start down the process, you start building out features, you kind of chase some ideas for a while, and you end up with something that is totally not what you were looking for. But hopefully, within that, you might see something that is interesting, that kind of hints at the real problem that you're trying to solve. And I think that happened last live stream when we were looking at these tools. One of the things that we didn't ask for at all is all this counting. It's counting words, it's counting unique words, it's counting characters. I didn't ask for that. At least I don't remember asking for that. I did paste in a bunch of comments from Reddit from people who were commenting on tools like this, and maybe some of those comments mentioned things like that. I just wasn't paying that close of attention. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it gives me a clearer picture of what options are available, what types of tools like this exist. And in fact, if we go to my website, I already have a tool that is at least a little bit similar to this. In fact, one of the very first tools that I built is this simple online character and word counter. And that's exactly what it does. Is it counts characters just like this is doing. It counts words just like this. So what I thought I had is, why don't I just build out, from this tool here, build out the feature set a little bit more, and add in a couple more features so that it can count phrases in addition to words and characters. And that's something that I hadn't thought of when I was thinking about a phrase frequency counter. My brain was focused on the phrase part, and in my head it was this completely different thing than a character counter. But I don't know if it needs to be. Obviously, it doesn't have to be. In this case, it's integrated with the phrase frequency counter. There were other ideas that stood out to me as well that I hadn't thought of. This option of being able to just click on the number of words that you want to count rather than trying to select from a drop down or something like that. Just clicking on a button is a lot easier. Let me reload this because I think it's kind of behaving pretty slowly. Partly because all the text that I pasted in there. Let's go ahead and reload. And then I'll paste that back in there. And hopefully that'll work. There we go. Yeah, so I like this option here where you just select the number of words in a phrase that you want to count rather than trying to select from a drop down. There's some other options that we hadn't really pinned down yet, like ignore common words, case sensitive. And if you think about each of these, there's a lot of assumptions that have to happen in the back end, or as you're building out this tool. Like, what is a common word? There could be a range. You could use like words like a and the and to, but I mean, as is the case with this, the whole purpose of this tool, we're trying to find what are the common phrases in a bunch of text. It's going to be different for any amount of text. So that's something to think about as well. How you determine which common words you're going to ignore. Another problem with something like that is whenever you have kind of a rule like that, the tool has to have that rule in the code somewhere, meaning that it's got to have that list of common words that it needs to ignore. And if any of the words that are in the text vary even slightly from the list that you have in the code, then it's not going to find a match. You can do some kind of hacky things like have it, compare words based on how close they are percentage-wise, like how many letters are similar to this other list. But you start running into other problems because of that. Another option is to use a library, a CDN library. That is always an option for something like that, where you're trying to pull a list of common words or any list of like a bunch of data. There are often libraries, public libraries that are available where you can pull them into your app, have your app reference that library, and then use that instead of trying to save all those words in the code. But that can be a breaking point if for some reason that library isn't available, and so that's something to think about as well. And then, okay, case sensitive. Do we care if the text is case sensitive or not? Like, do we only want to compare phrases where the text, like the punctuation or the case for each word is exactly the same? Grouped word forms. This one, I don't even know what this is. Grouped word forms. Let's hover over that. Combine run, runs, running. Okay, I get the concept, but again, similar to ignoring common words, we're either going to have to have some sort of a library where we can compare words that are different forms of the same word, or something. I mean, how are we going to do that programmatically? I don't want to integrate an AI into this little app because it's going to get really complicated. And you'll have to start dealing with APIs and all sorts of things, which we can do at a later date. But for this simple web app, I don't want to have something that complicated. So if it's going to be trying to find like every form of a word, the plural form or the word, the version that ends in ing, or maybe there's a verb form and an adjective form, and it can get really complicated. So that's an option that we may not want to have in our tool because it just makes it too complicated. And that's problematic both in making the app work, but it's also problematic in the user experience because the user is expecting it to behave a certain way. If you give them an option and then that option doesn't behave the way that they expect, it's going to be a bad experience for them. Punctuation handling. This one's a little bit interesting because let's say you have you commonly have a sentence that ends one way and starts another way. Like you've got one sentence that ends one way and then the next one starts one way. And if you have a lot of those sentences that start and end the same, like they're bunched up together, and if you ignore punctuation, it's going to count that as a phrase. Do you want to do that? Maybe not. So that's an option there. So remove all, smart removal. And anytime you see smart in a simple web app, you got to wonder what that means because, again, I'm not integrating AI into this, so it's not doing any real thinking. It may be comparing a list against another list or something like that. But how smart are we really trying to be? How smart are we really going to be able to make this simple web app with a little bit of code? That's a kind of a misleading term there and a problematic one for me because it means somewhere in here the app is trying to do a lot of work with not a lot of code, and anytime you do that, there's probably going to be some issues. So anytime you see like smart or simple or easy, generally when it's something like that in a simple web app, again, I'm using the word, but it's generally trying to do more than it's actually capable of. And that's when you start getting into problems. So it's something that we might want to eliminate from our version. Part of speech filter. Again, this is using some kind of either library within the code or some third-party library that it's referencing. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but do we really want to have that complex of a tool, or is that an option we can eliminate? Minimum word length. Do we care how long the words are that it's using? Not necessarily. However, if in the last time we had some text where it was like taking one letter and putting that next to a word and counting that as a phrase, and it wasn't really a real word. It was like the letter R. So if we want to eliminate that type of problem, then in that case, yeah, we may not want a word to count if it's only one character. Minimum occurrence. Do we care how few times a phrase appears before we count it? That part doesn't really matter that much, although technically every combination of two words that are in a sequence are going to count as a phrase if you set it to one. So, and then maximum results. I don't know if we really need that option. I mean, do we need maximum results? We want as many as exist. So almost all of these options here we could probably eliminate, which is going to make our app a little bit simpler. There might be, ignore common words. I don't know. Case sensitive. Maybe. And then I think punctuation handling, maybe. I don't think we can have a smart removal, but maybe we can have some version that is a little bit like a set of rules that are all together that we call something like smart removal. And then let's see here. Writing goal tracker, target 500 words. I don't even know what this is. I don't know what the writing goal tracker is. So we could probably eliminate that as well. And then sentiment analysis. This is analyzing, like, is it a positive sentiment or negative sentiment? What types of words are in there? And it must be using either some library within the code or referencing some third-party library. Because doing all that work to analyze the emotional content of some text is not going to be able to be something that you fit into a tiny bit of code for a web app. So that might be something that we need to eliminate as well. Charts, visual analytics. I don't even know what that means. Let's go ahead and pull up some text here. So I'm just going to search. Let's see. Bananas. And let's grab some of this text here. I'll just go to Wikipedia and pull the content from Wikipedia on bananas. All right. Select all, copy, and paste it in there. And I think I pasted it. Let's try that one more time. There we go. Okay, what's it doing here? Top 20 most frequent terms. The, of, and, in. Okay, it's creating like a word cloud, although I don't know why it only added 2 words to the word cloud. It's a pretty terrible word cloud. But that's kind of interesting. I mean, I do like word clouds, so maybe that's something that we want to keep in there. I like the visual analytics. I think we just need to fix this. Sentiment, positive words, 6, negative words, 1. I don't know how it's counting that. Again, I don't think we need a sentiment analysis for a phrase frequency counter. It's a nice idea, but it's not a feature that I care about right now. And then frequency. This is the one that I do care about. Let's set this to 3-word phrases. And let's go back to the charts. Okay, this is interesting. Yeah, I do like the charts. But for some reason, the word cloud isn't working well. I'm not sure why that is. So let's see which of these I want to, and then toggle. I don't know what I'm toggling here. Oh, just more options. Okay. Really, this should say, like, it should default to closed possibly, and should say advanced options or something like that. I don't know what load sample means. I guess that's just sample text that it's pulling. Yep. Okay. I don't think we need that. Upload file. Yeah, that's probably good to have. Clean text. I don't know what this does. Undo, redo. Well, I like undo, but I don't know what that really means. I mean, is it undoing or is it redoing? You can't have one button that does both. Doesn't make any sense. I guess you could if it just goes back and forth. And then writing goal tracker, target 500 words. I don't really need this. I mean, we already have, okay, let's see here. Why does it say, 71 of 500 words? I get it. Yeah, this is kind of pointless. I don't know why you need a writing goal tracker. So anyway, let's take all this feedback and dump it into, and let's start with a new conversation with ChatGPT. Actually, let's use Perplexity. I feel like Perplexity does a lot better job with code. So I've been using Perplexity. I'm not sure what their base model is. I think they're using Claude. I'm not totally certain on that. You can select a model here, but if you just click best, I don't know which model it's picking. But anyway, whenever I do this, if I start a new conversation working on a tool that I was already working on, the first thing I do, I copy all the code, paste it in there, and I say, let's see here. What does the code below do? List every function, element, variable, and constant. And those are, element is a CSS and a HTML word, but function, variable, and constant are JavaScript words. So these are just descriptors describing different pieces of JavaScript code. I'm telling it to tell us what each of those do. So list every function, element, variable, and constant, and tell me what each does and how. This is to give it the full context of what this tool is in both the code format and in the English language format. Because one of the weird quirks about large language models is each time you interact with the model within a conversation, it takes the entire previous conversation up until that point and uses that as context for the response. So if you're starting out with just some code and it doesn't have any context, any language context, it may not really have a good handle on how to talk about the tool that you're trying to work on. And so forcing it to essentially create its own context window is giving us, it is helping us avoid that problem. So now it should have a clear understanding of this tool, what it does, and how it works. Now I'm going to go through each of these and I'm going to say which ones I want to eliminate. And let's see here. Eliminate the following options. Let's see here. Ignore common words. We'll eliminate that one. Let's leave case sensitivity. Group word forms. Let's eliminate that one because I would have to use some sort of library or something, which I don't want to do. Punctuation handling. Let's keep punctuation handling. But we'll tell it to change. I'll have to think about that in just a minute. But parts of speech filter, we don't want that because, again, it's going to have to use some sort of complicated library, which we don't want. Let's see here. Minimum occurrences. I don't think we need minimum occurrences. We don't really care about that. Maximum results. We certainly don't need to eliminate. We don't need that option. We'll eliminate it. And then sentiment and emotion analysis. We don't need that. Again, that's going to have to use some sort of library, which I don't want to do. And okay, so let's handle the problem with the punctuation handling. Again, I don't like this smart removal thing. So let's see if it mentions smart removal and it didn't mention it in its response. So I'm going to just mention it myself here. And also make it more clear what was that called again? One more time. Smart removal. Make it more clear what smart removal means in punctuation handling. Let's see if there's anything else we can add to this round of edits. Oh, let's also eliminate load sample. All right, and then sentences, paragraphs, that's fine. Min read. How many minutes it would take to read the text. I don't know what that means. And then clean text. What does that do? Let's copy a bunch of text and paste it in there and see what happens when we click that button. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. What smart removal means in punctuation handling and what clean text means. Split undo and redo into two buttons. And fix the word phrase cloud and let me select how many of the top occurring words and phrases to include. Okay, there we go. Now we could use another model as well, and again, I really like to do that whenever I'm working on code like this. So let's go ahead. Oh, you know what? I'm realizing now that this initial query I never actually pasted in the code, so it's not working on the full context. So let's go ahead and dump that code in there. You probably noticed that a long time ago. Let's see here. There we go. And let's take our prompt again. And it's actually not a huge problem because we've given it a more context about how to think about what it is that we're trying to get it to do. So I didn't do that on purpose, but that happens sometimes where you end up providing more context than you meant, and that's not a bad problem to have. All right. Let's go ahead and run that. And let's pull up ChatGPT as well. Get another cough drop. Again, I'm recovering from a cold. So hopefully that doesn't annoy you too much. All right, and we're going to use Canvas this time and let it spit out the code. And let me add my prompt here. That will encourage it to write the entire code. Often when you're doing editing of some code, it'll tell you what edits to make and like give you this overview of like how to make the edits yourself. You don't want to do that. You want it to write the entire code for you. especially when you're doing these little web tools. You might as well just have the app or the platform write all the code for you rather than you going back and forth and doing these edits, and it's way too tedious. So if you can remember to add in this direct prompt to please write the full and complete updated working web app code with no placeholders or comments. Instead, ensure all code is fully complete and working. You can remember to add that prompt in there. That's always going to end up being nice, so you don't have to sit there and go back and forth and edit pieces of code. All right, let's see what this looks like. All right, word frequency analyzer. It's got analyze, undo, redo, upload file, clean text. And maybe I didn't paste in that whole prompt here. Let's go ahead and copy this, because I want to be more clear on what exactly these other things do. And I'm going to, again, add that prompt because I don't want it to just tell us. I want it to update the interface. And let's see what Perplexity ended up with as well. And if you notice, I forgot to put that prompt in there. So let me go ahead and remind it to write the code for us. And hopefully it'll do that. All right, so this is working on editing that tool. One of the weird quirks about ChatGPT is while you're viewing a one of these code snippets, like when you click the preview button, if it's working on editing, it generally won't update the version that you're looking at. You have to close it and then reopen it. They may change that at some point, but currently that's how it works. The app now clearly explains smart removal and clean text. Let's see. Smart removal. Keep apostrophes in contractions and hyphens in compound words. Okay, that's fine. That's a little better. And then undo redo version. Okay, yeah, let's take this text and try this out. Analyze. All right, and for some reason, okay, this is problematic. It's making this chart way too big. That happens sometimes when you're analyzing like a lot of data. For some reason, the code that is put out by ChatGPT especially can't handle situations like that where you're trying to analyze a lot of data. So it just ends up making these giant charts like that. I've run into that before. We also lost those buttons that we wanted. So already I'm disliking this version. It looks different than the original. The chart doesn't work very well. So far I'm a little dissatisfied. So let's see what Perplexity does. We'll go ahead and copy this code, paste that in here. And it kept the same look, which is great. We're going to paste this code in here. Oops. And alerts detected 4 urgent keyword issues, problematic issues, problems. All right. Well, I don't know what that means, but this sounds problematic. I might have to look into that. Okay, this is interesting. Detected 13 urgent keywords. Been a problematic issue. So I don't know. Oh, this is the, I think it's still doing some of the, like, sort of the sentiment analysis or something. I don't know what it's doing there. Let's see here. It seems like these buttons are working, but they're not staying highlighted when they're active. So that's something that we'll need to fix. Case insensitive, yep, that's good. Punctuation handling, smart removal. It's still not telling us what smart removal means. And it's also because every time we update one of these, it's reprocessing the data again. It takes some time. It's like kind of slow to respond. Part of speech filter, I thought we told it not to, I thought we told it to eliminate that. Let's go ahead and say that again. And actually, let's switch this to the research mode because that'll put out better code. Eliminate the part of speech filter. We don't want that. I thought I already said to do that, but maybe I didn't. Top words, phrases in cloud. Okay, that's good, but we might want that option over here. And let's see, archive from the origin. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's only counting 5. So what it may be doing is counting each one of those 5 phrases. So maybe each one appears 4 times. And in fact, or maybe it's counting the words. Let's see. Oh, that's what it's probably doing. Yeah, each one of those is 4 words. So it's counting. So that's something that we'll need to fix. So let's do, I don't know, 100. See what happens. And okay, word, phrase, cloud, top, count. I don't know what's happening here. Or if I put this to 100. Yeah, it seems like it's not working well. Okay, so let's also say something about that. Fix the options and put them on the same tab as the word cloud. And then we'll have to say something about that phrase versus word thing. Count. Okay. When choosing how many words to add to the word cloud, count single words as individually, but when choosing phrases, instead count phrases instead of words. Let's do count whole phrases instead of words. Individually instead of words. And then there was some other problem here with the this part here. Also, not sure what this is. Let's see if there were any other issues here. Export frequency. Okay, frequency is good. Oh yeah, the button, the quick analysis preset buttons, the quick analysis presets buttons don't stay highlighted when active, but they should. Generally, like if you're telling an LLM, a large language model, about a problem with its code or one of its outputs, it's one thing to just list the problem, list out a bunch of problems. But each time you add a prompt, again, it's adding that prompt to the context for the entire conversation. And there's a chance that just listing out the problems is not going to be viewed by the model as problems. You're just listing out facts. So if you don't tell it it's a problem, then it may not understand fully that it's a problem. So generally, I try to remember to state what the problem is and why it's a problem and what I want it to do instead. I'm often trying to just get the prompt done, and so I'm being lazy and writing it quickly, and I forget to do some of that. But just for future reference, if you're running into problems where you keep telling the same thing over and over, it may not really fully understand that what you're saying is a problem. If you just list out a fact about the whatever text it gave you or whatever code it gave you, if you say like all the boxes have borders on them, yes, that's a fact. It doesn't necessarily know that they shouldn't. So you got to let it know all the boxes have borders on them and they shouldn't. Something like that. That should help give it more context so that the response that it gives you makes a little bit more sense. And let's see here. Oh yeah, this section here. I'm just gonna click the inspect button or the inspect option there, and look at this section here. I don't know what this is. Yeah. I don't understand what the is for and what all the random alerts are. Please fix. And I should give it more context, but I don't even know where to start. I don't know what I don't know what that thing is. So let's go ahead and run that. See what happens. And it's going to be using the research model, which takes a little bit longer, but hopefully should do a better job. And while that's working, I'm going to go over to, let's pull up my website here. and pull up that tool that I was mentioning earlier, the free online character and word counter tool. And, I built this tool quite a while ago, and it was when I was first starting out trying to build these kinds of things. So I don't know that I built this how I would do it now. I don't know that the model I used, I forget what it was, if it was ChatGPT or Perplexity or Grok, or it wouldn't have been Grok at the time, but whatever it was, I don't know if those have improved since then and would have done a better job. This works pretty well for what it is. It's a pretty simple tool. Just does this. I like that it's automatic and easy to see. Each of these are highlighted in yellow. But the reason I'm bringing it up is I don't know if there's any of this design or this implementation that we should use with our tool. Maybe we could integrate some of the design language, this is a pretty simple tool. There's not really much design language to speak of. But there's a little bit, there's the fact that this has a gray background in the text area. The text area is able to be resized vertically, but not horizontally. That's a design choice. And this is green. This is black text with yellow background or yellow highlight. So each of those are some sort of a design language choice. The fact that this entire little app has a shadow behind it. Each of those are choices that we have to make when we're building out a tool. Do we want it to look that way? Generally, when you're building something out, that the model that you're using is going to make its own choices. And as is the case here, I didn't tell it what I wanted it to look like, but this is what it ended up looking like. And I think it's fine, but it's just a thought as you're building out a tool, and especially if it's similar to something that you've built before, it's worth going and looking at those that previous version or that previous tool and saying, okay, is there anything that I want to take from this and implement it going forward? And in my case, since I already have a tool that's pretty similar, I will probably just be updating the tool on this page and swapping it out for the new version. So in that case, it really makes sense just to take the design language of the first one and expand it a little bit. So I'm just going to inspect this, and rather than logging into my blog, I'll just go ahead and copy this. And these are all front-end tools, completely built on the front end in JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. So I can just copy the whole tool from here. I don't have to go in and log in. I can't update it, but I can copy it. And I'm going to paste that code in here. Use this design language. One thing I could do is, rather than just pasting all that code in there and adding extra context that we don't need, I could take that code and take it into a new conversation and ask whatever language model I use to define what the design language is and what buttons would look like in this design language, kind of like build out a whole like design philosophy based on this tool. And then I could take that and put that into this conversation. Either way, it's like kind of two ways of doing the same thing. There's no necessarily any reason why you'd need to do it one way or the other. The reason why you might want to is because, if for example, I was taking a tool that had nothing to do with the tool that we're working on, and I didn't want the large language model to get confused and be building out like the wrong features. But in this case, the tool that I'm building is so similar to the example I'm giving it. I'm not too worried about that. And in fact, it won't be a problem at all if it uses some of the earlier code. So in this specific case, I can use this tool. I can use the code as an example of the design language. But if I were building out a tool that's completely different, had completely different features, but I do like the design language, then I would just take that into a new conversation and I would do that analysis of the design language, and then I would take that part of the prompt or that part of the response and paste that into this conversation. So that's just not the case for this particular case, but just for future reference, if you run into that. All right, so let's see, what else can we do while we're waiting for that research model to complete? Okay, I mentioned that I want to show you how to do a Chrome extension, and if you're new to this world of coding with AI, or if you're fairly new to coding in general, this is probably going to blow your mind. This is a tool that I built after working with ChatGPT and Gemini and now Grok and Perplexity. I've been working with these for the past couple of years, for pretty much since really when ChatGPT was brand new and was not very good at the time. I started then coding with AI, and so I've been working with it for quite a while. I started out trying to build a Chrome extension. It took me 6 months to a year to get the thing completed. And now I've got a web tool where you can package a Chrome extension, a complete Chrome extension from scratch, just by doing a couple things. So I want to show you that process. I've already got when you load this tool, it's already got these files set right here. So these are just default when you load the tool. If you create your own Chrome extension, you're going to want to upload or update these and put your own text in there. But just as a default, just to show you how easy this is, these are already pre-filled with different text, and each of these files has a file name there. And these this is like a simple version of a Chrome extension that, anytime you build a Chrome extension, it's probably going to have at least two, generally 3, maybe 4 different files just like this. So this is an example of what that could look like. So let me show you how quickly we can make a Chrome extension with this tool, and I'll show you exactly how. So we're going to start just by refreshing the page. I'm going to upload a source PNG, and the reason I'm doing that is because if I don't, let me show you what happens. If I try to download this, it pops up with this error saying missing file references. And the reason it's missing is because in this manifest.json, I'm calling for 3 icons that don't exist. So I've already built out a part of the tool where you can upload any image and it will convert that into these different sizes. So if you reference these specific file names, it's going to pull from whatever file you uploaded here. Okay, that's all we did. We just uploaded one file, and we're going to hit download extension zip, and that is it. The Chrome extension is complete. We've just created an entire Chrome extension. Let me show you what that Chrome extension does. It's a new tab page that shows exactly this. So let me go to my extensions page, and I'm going to disable the custom new tab page. In fact, let's go ahead and remove it. This is annoying. This thing covers up the remove button. There we go. Remove. Okay, so let's re-download this Chrome extension just so I can show you this whole process. So download, we'll go to our extensions page, we'll drag that file onto this page, and just like that, we have a new Chrome extension. It was that easy. Now, it's going to be a little bit more difficult when you're building your own Chrome extension because you're not starting with the text that's in these files right here. But all you have to do, and in fact, I've written a prompt right here. All you have to do is copy this prompt, which I will put in the description of this video when we're done here. And go to ChatGPT. So we'll just pull up ChatGPT. Put that prompt in there. And tell it what you want the extension to do. Quickly write a Chrome extension that, and then just say whatever it is that you want the Chrome extension to do. So let's say adds a pop-up calculator to the menu bar. And I'm going to select Canvas here. Actually, no, let's not select Canvas because Canvas will use, it uses that specific canvas and it'll try to fit everything into there, or it'll split it up into separate canvases. Either way, it's kind of annoying. I already have the prompt here that tells it exactly what we want it to do. So let's just go ahead and submit that. Quickly write a Chrome extension that adds a pop-up calculator to the menu bar. Write each file in separate code boxes, which is what we want it to do, which is why I didn't use the Canvas option. Follow all manifest version 3 and v3 requirements for today's date. No excuses, do not waste 1 second, so blah, 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 this whole prompt. All right, so it's generating all of the files for this this Chrome extension. Unfortunately, it's not telling us what each of these files are. Now, we know this one is HTML, we know this is JavaScript, but it's not naming these files. Please do that again, but list the name of each file before the code box for that file. All right, here we go. Perfect. All right, so manifest.json, we're going to copy that code here, and we're going to go to our tool right here. And again, let me just refresh. So we'll start from scratch. And in the manifest.json, we'll put that in there and see if it calls for any images, and it doesn't. So we don't have to worry about that. We're going to copy the code here and that's going to be called popup.html. Pop up. And make sure you write these correctly, because if they're incorrectly spelled, it won't work. Popup.css. Popup.css. And popup.js. Is that all? Yep, that's it. So go to file number 4. We're going to call this popup.js. And download. And just like that, we've created a Chrome extension. Now let's go see if it works. It may or may not. So we'll go to our extensions page. We'll drag it from here. It's still downloading. For some reason, sometimes these take a little bit of time. Drag it on there. Now, we might have to click here to find it. Somewhere in here, let's see. Toolbar calculator. We're going to pin this. Now, just like that, we've got a calculator. 25 times 100 equals error. All right. For some reason, this calculator doesn't work. That's not a problem. We're just going to go see if there's any errors here. Sometimes it'll show you if any errors popped up. Let's see, toolbar calculator. I don't see any errors. If we click details, it hasn't let us know any errors. So let's try again and just double check that nothing works. 80 plus 10 equals, all right. So for some reason, this tool isn't working. So let's go tell ChatGPT. Every response is error. That's bad. And again, I'm just telling it that that's unexpected. It's bad. We don't like that. And it says the error response comes from the function evaluator when it encounters syntax issues. Okay, so it's going to try to rewrite everything again. Now, if this time it doesn't work, there is a second thing that we can do. We're going to go copy the code. Most of the time, it's like I copied the code into the wrong box here, or I mistitled one of the files, popup.html. I'm just double checking as I go. Okay, popup.html. Popup.css. Let me just make sure I grab that. Okay, copied. And popup.js. Okay. And we'll go ahead and download again. And let's go back to our extensions page, and we will remove this one here and refresh. Sometimes it won't disappear until you refresh. And now we will drag this new version here, and let's see if it works. We're going to go ahead and find it here, pin it, click on the button. Let's do 60 plus 10, and same issue, error. Now, I don't know why it's erroring out, and rather than chasing this down repeatedly, let's let it know. Still seeing error every time. Please add logging, and it's really called console logging. Console logging. Please add console logging at every step. Now it's going to rewrite that code, and it's going to add in these triggers to log every time that there's an error or every time that anything happens. And hopefully we'll catch where that error is happening. If we can catch some of that process, then we can then tell ChatGPT, hey, this is what's happening, and maybe it'll see where that error is occurring. So let's go ahead and copy all these again back into our tool here. Oops, didn't copy that. Hello? Are you there, ChatGPT? Come on. Well, while that's loading, yeah, I was going to say we could go see how our perplexity conversation is going. This one should be ready for a new test, but that one's taking a while as well. Not sure why maybe my internet is slowing down because I'm streaming. Come on. Sorry, everybody. There we go. Okay. Let's try this again. All right, copy code. So we're copying the manifest. Copying popup.html. Copying popup.css. And popup.js. So this is a pretty typical process. Even though we're doing a very simple Chrome extension, you just often run into problems like this. And there are various reasons why that is. I mean, there's, Chrome is constantly being updated. It could be some problem related to that. These large language models just run into trouble sometimes. It could be any number of reasons why that's happening. Let's see, where did it go here? Toolbar calculator. There we go. So let's try this again. 80 plus 10. And now it's working. So for some reason, adding that logging fixed the calculator somehow. But if it hadn't, let's try it. Yeah, okay, now it's seems to be working. Let's see, 80 times 10. Oops, clear. 80 times 10. Okay, it's working. But if it hadn't been working, one thing we can do is pull up Google's or Chrome's tools here. And I'm not sure if it'll show up here. Let's go ahead and open this up. 80 times 25. Okay, it's not showing up here. So I'm going to click inspect on this tool itself. And it's going to pull up a new window, and we can show the console. This console is going to show us all of those logs, all the logging that we implemented in this tool. Now that it's working, we don't need to troubleshoot. But this is a great way to troubleshoot when you run into a problem like that. You can just copy all this and then drag that into your conversation or paste it in your conversation. And you don't even necessarily have to tell it what the problem is. But if it doesn't understand what you're saying by pasting that code in there, if it doesn't understand what you're saying, then you can add in the additional context of telling it what the problem is, like from the user experience, what you expected to happen and what happened instead, and why that's bad. In this case, we didn't have to do that because just the act of adding logging, ChatGPT changed something within the code that then eliminated that problem. So we don't have to worry about it. But just like that, we've created a working Chrome extension. Let's go ahead and add an image. Let's add an icon PNG. And hopefully it'll rewrite that manifest just like that. And I don't know if we need these other files, but we're definitely going to need this manifest. And we'll need to upload an icon. And let's go ahead and take those other files and paste those in there. I think, was that right? Maybe I think I put that in the wrong thing. All right, let's see, pop-up.css. Yeah. pop-up.html. I think that's the one that I skipped, maybe. Pop-up.js. And let's try that again. We're going to remove the toolbar calculator, the old one, refresh here, and now drag that new one on here. And let's see, where'd it go? Oh yeah, right there. You can already see that it's got an icon. And we're going to pin it. And there, now it's got an icon. Let's see, 80 plus 24. And yep, it works. So again, just like that, it was that easy. We've got a working Chrome extension. We can now take this Chrome extension, put it in the Chrome Web Store. I think they now charge a small fee to do that, and it takes some time to get approved. But it wasn't that difficult. Like something that took me 6 months to a year to build is now, you can now do it in minutes. That's how powerful these large language models are, and how useful this tool is. So feel free to use it. It's on my website, getmoredonefast.com. And currently it's the very last tool that I've posted, so it appears right here. I've got plenty of other tools that I've built using ChatGPT and other large language models. Speaking of which, let's go see how Perplexity is doing with our, we have to refresh, and hopefully it'll actually work. Here we go. And let's see where it's at. I need some hold music or something. Okay, let's go ahead and copy and put into CodePen over here. And let's close this so it's not distracting us. All right, and let's see if everything works as expected. A little bit simpler, punctuation handling, smart removal. I still don't like that it has smart removal there, but that's okay for now. It's not the worst thing in the world. All right, let's paste all the text there. And let's do forward phrases. And this seems to be working. Let's try the charts. All right, and I don't know why, but but for some reason, the word cloud isn't adjusting based on how many items I've selected. So let's go ahead and tell Perplexity that. For some reason, the word cloud is not automatically updating based on how I adjust the slider. Also, I want some more options for the word cloud to change the design and the design and visual look and feel. All right, let's go ahead and send that prompt. And I noticed that the reasoning model or research model isn't automatically selected here, even though we were using that previously. That's okay, but if for some reason this response isn't as doesn't work, or it seems like it's forgotten some things, then we may want to switch the model back to the research model. It just tends to be the case that the research model does a little bit better job, at least on Perplexity. That's not the case on ChatGPT. On ChatGPT, if you try to use the reasoning model, or what they call deep research, it just ends up doing all this research for you and not writing the code at all. So for some reason, Perplexity's research model will write code and ChatGPT's won't. Similar problem with Gemini's deep research mode. It'll just do research and write copious amounts of text. It'll write way too much text and do all this analysis and write like this long article that you didn't want, but it won't write code. So in Perplexity, you can use the research model to write your code, and I've had good experience with it, but not the case with the other models. All right, let's see here. How did it change? Well, now it's broken. See, this is the problem that I was worried about running into. For some reason, I don't know if it forgot things, if what the case is, but for some reason this code is now kind of broken. Something about it isn't working correctly, and it's not appearing as it should. So what I'm going to do is go down here and have it regenerate, but I'm going to select the research model and rewrite. Now it'll take all that same context and respond to it, but now using a different model, and hopefully do a better job. In my case, in my experience, that's been the case with ChatGPT, with Perplexity, is that just having it rerun the same prompt, but with the research model, it just, in my experience, it's done a better job every time. One of the things that I've run into with all these models is they're often using kind of like generic design language. That's to be expected, because it's basing its response on like kind of an average of all the content that exists on the internet, pretty much, and so it's expected that it's going to look pretty generic. There are various ways to fix that, but probably the best way is just to tell it exactly what you like and don't like, and be really specific and give it examples. In this case, especially as I'm building out a new tool with like I'm caring a lot about what features it has, I leave the design part till later. There's not anything wrong with bringing in design earlier on, but I just don't want to waste my time. That's why. So like I said, there's nothing wrong with starting out with the design you like. Maybe give it some, even you can give it pictures, you can give it links, and you can say, I want it to look like this, and it'll generally do a pretty good job of duplicating any design that you give it. It's much better to give it a design you like rather than tell it something you don't like. One of the problems with these models is that they do not do a good job of omitting things from a design or from a response. Part of the reason for that is because the way that these work is it's taking all of the context from the conversation and spitting out a response that is based on that context. So if you're constantly telling it things you don't like, then it's, even though you're saying I don't like this, you're still talking about that thing that you don't like. You're still adding that to the context. So it's better to start out telling it what you do like and set it off on the right foot, rather than like muddying up the water with all these things you're telling it that you don't like, and then it's constantly like leaving them in there. That happens a lot. A lot of times I'll just start a new conversation and take something from the previous conversation that I did like, and then and try to omit it myself from the conversation going forward. All right, let's see how this came out. Okay, that looks a little better. Let's copy the text from Wikipedia over here, just random text. And let's see here. Let's do forward phrases and go over to charts. Okay, let's see if I adjust this. Okay, it's still not working. It is randomizing the colors correctly as I update this, but it's not adjusting the number of phrases that appear. This is looking good. Size variation, high contrast, mixed angles. Okay, we're getting somewhere, but for some reason it's having trouble setting the number of items in a word cloud. I don't know why that is. I'm not going to worry about it too much right now, because I'm getting to where towards the end of this stream. But anyway, we're making progress. We're getting closer to something that I think it would be worth putting on a website. We still need to do some troubleshooting. We need to test it out some more, but we're getting there. And I still need to get rid of some things like the clean text thing. We should probably gray these out since they don't really do anything yet. Although, let's see. Testing. This is going to work. It seems like it's freezing. It's not going to work at all, so I don't know what's happening here. Come on. Can I? Okay, there we go. Test. Now if I try undoing. Yeah, there seems to be some sort of problem with the undo. It does work, but it's really slow. Undo and redo. Does that work? Yeah, let's see if the console is logging anything. And this might be a situation where I want to add some console logging. One of the problems with CodePen that I've noticed recently is anytime I open the console, it resets the page. So if you're working on something that has that it matters and you don't want it to reset, just keep the console open so that it doesn't keep resetting like that. All right, so I'm going to work on this some more and hopefully get this done pretty soon and post it on my website. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream there. I think that's quite a bit of information that I've thrown at you throughout this stream. Hopefully this is interesting to you. I think these skills are super useful. I've been building out these tools, like I said, for the past couple of years, and I really enjoy it, and I'm getting better at it to where it's taking me less time per tool, and they're coming out. I mean, they're getting more complex, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it. So thanks for joining me on this journey, and I'll see you again next live stream. I'm not going to schedule these out. I'll just do them as I enjoy doing them. Maybe at some point, if we start building up an audience, then maybe I'll start scheduling them out. But for now, it's just as I'm interested and as I'm having fun. So anyway, thanks for joining.